Today in the Pipeline Vlog, we talk about comic book reviewers and their reviews. How much should a comic book reviewer know before they open their big mouths? Probably more than that. Today, as I record this, Nelson Blake II posted on Twitter this morning something along the lines of, it's a darn shame that more comic book reviewers don't know more about comic books. Basically, that there are movie critics who know about directing and cinematography and scripting, while there are comic book reviewers who don't discuss the art. And this is not a new complaint, especially from comic book artists. This has been going on for years about reviews that talk about basically the writing and the story and completely leave out anything past that. I agree with him. I think we all should know more. And that's why I've done more and tried to learn more. And that's why my reviews include stuff about lettering and coloring and art and even inking and penciling. You've seen over the years in Pipeline, I've done a little bit of all of it, as a matter of fact. I drew a Smurfs story, a Shinku Smurfs story that Rod Mars had written up one time in Pipeline, just for kicks. But the thing is, when you practice some of these things, when you try them, even knowing you're not going to be good, even knowing you're not going to make a career of it, I think it's worth trying them all, because you learn about all the decisions those creators have to make. It's easy to look at a finished product, any sort of creative finished product, and say that, well, yeah, that's all obvious. I mean, one thing leads to another. You do this here, you do that there. It's obvious, and what's the big deal? Start off with a blank page of paper sometime and say the same thing. Start off with the blinking cursor on the screen. Start with a pencil page and an ink pen in your hand, and try not to ruin that page. Start off with a Photoshop file with this gorgeous, completed, final inked art, and try not to make a muddied mess of it by coloring everything brown, or just on the opposite, making it a candy-colored rainbow piece of crap. These things are not easy, and the people who do these things have lots of decisions to make on every single page to get them done, and it's their years of experience and trying and doing and publishing that have made them the professionals that they are, and have made their work as good as it is. And even when it's not terribly good, and there are some who aren't great at the various things, sometimes they just have bad months, but they've practiced it, they've tried it, they've been doing it, and sometimes, you know, we all fail in life, and that's life. But I think, you know, Nelson's right in that you can't just review comics and ignore everything past the writing. And obviously, a review of a comic that is just a plot synopsis is bad and all sorts of wrong. But do please include the art. Now, here's the flip side of the thing. Speaking as a guy who writes reviews, who, you know, on one hand, when I'm writing for comicbook.com, I try to keep it under 1,000 words. On the other hand, when I'm writing for pipelinecomics.com, I can make it longer. I don't like to, because I tend to get stuck in the weeds of editing and making sure I include everything, and it takes longer to write those things. But I've written 2,000, 3,000 word reviews of single comics in my life. When you start to include everything, you don't want to leave out anything. And then you start sounding like you're just giving perfunctory notification of each individual person. So, to creators, I just say this. It's not always true that a single review is the best summation of a reviewer's corpus, if you will. Sometimes you have to look at the broad sweep of all the reviews they've done to see that they do understand art and inking and coloring and layout and design and composition and contrast and graphical design and all the sorts of things that you don't see many reviewers talk about. Sometimes they do, it's just not necessarily in the review of your book. Sometimes you have to focus on just one thing to make for a review that anyone would want to read. You stick with a focus on one particular idea, and you use that review to sort of hammer that one home. I'm not the type of person who writes 350 or 500 word blurb reviews on a website every week. Thank God I couldn't do that. It would drive me nuts. A lot of reviews I could write would either be 50 words, this comic is pretty good, it looks cool, or they're 2,000 words because I find something to latch onto, and I tend to write about mostly that. Now, I think writing these European album reviews in the past 8 months or so has been great for my reviewing skills because there is so much to review. Nothing can be taken for granted. I'm writing for an audience who's never read these books, who don't know these creators, who in many cases don't even know the characters or have ever heard of the characters, even when they're huge stars in Europe. And to that end, I'm kind of forced to review different parts of it. And even I forget stuff and leave stuff off from time to time. I just wrote a review of Long John Silver and forgot to castigate them for using the crossbar I in the lettering. But generally speaking, Franco-Belgian comics lettering is better than American lettering. I just like the way it looks. It looks a little bouncier most of the times. Except for some of the more serious books where things start to look more leaden and more, print publication-like, and I like those less. But for the most part, lettering is pretty cool, but Cinebook in particular has a tough time sometimes with the crossbar I. But again, you have to take it from both sides, and I think there's room for both to do better. There always is. But if you want to read more about lettering and inking and coloring and all that stuff, please visit pipelinecomics.com more often. I have reviews at least a couple times a week. And I don't want to turn this into a completely promotional thing, but I'm kind of proud, hold on, thank you, of myself for pulling that kind of stuff off. And I think for reviewers, my fellow reviewers out there, yes, please don't forget that the art is part of the storytelling. And it's more than just they draw too cartoony, or that they draw realistically, whatever that means. I've used that word before, even I'm not sure what it means. I think we just mean, when we say realistic, that it's less iconic. We have to get back to that Scott McCloud triangle thing of iconic and realistic and whatever the third point was, and grade things along that kind of scale. But we have to take into account all the storytelling tricks and tips and ideas that go into a page, the composition of the overall page, the direction of the storytelling, all that. In the end, does the book work for you or not? Why and why not? And sometimes maybe it is just the writing. Maybe sometimes it is just the art. Plenty of us read books just for the writing or just for the art. It happens in the world of comics, and sometimes your review will reflect that. But I think, if we're being honest, if you're doing a serious sort of critique of a comic, you have to go into deeper depth than just that. I think it is correct what Nelson says, that we need, as comic book reviewers, to know more if we want to be taken seriously, and I think that's something for all of us to strive towards and to continue to do if we are doing it already. And again, not to be a complete egotistical jerk, but I think I'm doing it. Any case, what do you think about all that? Let me know. Tweet me. I'm at Pipeline Comics, of course, on Twitter, or AugieDB. Either one I'll answer to. And thank you for watching and continuing to watch the Pipeline vlog, and I'll be back soon with another one.